I go Eliza from my name. Growing up, my twin sister Anna's variation from night to day was like that also. She was the golden girl. I wasn't quite sure. Our mom was the classic housewife, devoted to her house and family, and pressing us to follow in her footsteps. Our dad, a strict university professor, had his life's work bound up in books and lectures. Being at home felt more like sitting through an endless critiquing session from as early as I can recall. My parents had a template for the ideal family, and it included no daughter who preferred to keep to herself and wore band t-shirts. My mother loved the remark, "Eliza, why can't you be more like your sister?" Usually she tossed it my way when I arrived at breakfast wearing headphones in order to block out the world. Anna, on the other hand, reveled in praise. Turning her immaculate hair over her shoulder, she would add, "I just don't get why it's so hard for you to put on a nice dress and smile more." She seemed to live on another planet. One very exhausting Saturday as our family got ready for one of Dad's faculty parties, a terrible snooze-fest, but a required attendance for us. I decided to resist in the tinniest way I knew how. I applied my darkest eyeliner at a pair of boots clearly below the required threshold. "You're not going out like that, are you?" Mom grabbed me on the steps, her eyes darting down to my footwear as though they were muddy. I gave a shrug, my usual response. "Don't find why not." She exhaled that long, drawn-out sigh, saying I was the biggest letdown in her perfectly arranged universe. "Please, Eliza, just this time can't you try to fit in?" "For what exactly? You can thus assume that we are the ideal family." Tired of the same old song and dance, I shot back. "It's not about passing for another. It's about respecting your father," she said, her voice sharp enough to convey business. Hearing the conversation, Anna came running down the hall with heels clicking on the hardwood like a judge approaching the bench. "Mom is right, Liz. It's not difficult to look decent. Why do you always have to complicate things?" Feeling my face flush, I said, "Maybe I don't want to be a clone of you, Anna. More than anything, I disliked feeling the odd one out in my own house. I despised these debates and hated being compared." Dad showed up at the bottom of the stairs, wrinkled brow. His voice was strong. "Eliza, go change right now. In 10 minutes we are departing." His voice did not allow any debate. He did not scream. He did not have to. His disappointment in his eyes was sufficient to send me marching back to my room to change my boots for plain flats and clean away half of my eyeliner. The car was silent save for the classical music Dad insisted on playing, as it was calming as we traveled to the celebration. I watched the window, the woods speeding past. I vowed to myself at that instant that someday I would live a life in which nobody could advise me on what to dress, how to behave, or who to be. I would be rid of these echoes someday. The only section of the house where I could imagine I was somewhere else, anywhere else, was my room. My room was mine, unlike the rest of the home full of my parents' decisions. Just 4 walls covered in music posters and sketches, yet it was my haven from the reality of my family's expectations. Dad knocked one evening as I was attempting to bury myself in a playlist of my favorite bands and marched into my room, his face set in a familiar grimace. "Eliza, down that noise level, and why haven't you worked with Anna today?" "You both have tests coming up," he remarked, his voice austere. Pulling out one earpiece, I gazed up at him, attempting to maintain even voice. "I have been studying. Not with Anna. I pick things better working alone." Dad shook his head, obviously not agreeing. "You are familiar with the guidelines. Your sister earns good marks. You ought to be following suit. Why you always have to complicate things is beyond me." "It's not about making things difficult," I remarked, mounting irritation. "I simply don't understand why I should do anything Anna suggests. Can I study any way I want?" He switched his complaint instead of answering that. "And I saw you with those friends of yours yesterday in the cafe. They hardly seem to be a beneficial influence. You ought to be hanging around with my colleagues' daughters. They're more appropriate." my temper started to run hot. Fit for what? For your particular situation? Given their discussions of economics and their seeming enjoyment of those dull university events? Mom showed up at the doorway, her voice shrill as she joined in before he could respond. Eliza, your father makes accurate observations. From decent homes. The girls they act in a certain way. These are the sort of buddies you should aim for. Rising, I faced each of them. What if I object to friends selected for me? What if I want to pick my own companions, decide what I study, or even what I want to be? That's enough, Eliza, Mom murmured, her voice last. You know the university marks your future. Your father is assured of that, and you'll have to start considering settling down once you graduate. We had already gone over this. Settle down. The words floated like a life sentence. You mean start considering being someone's wife like Anna? Is that all you suppose I should be meant for? Mom's voice stayed strong even if her face softened just a little. We hope for your best. Traveling the road we have chosen will lead to a decent existence. A good life, I reiterated, the bitterness of irony in my mouth. Is it a good life if it's someone else's idea of great? Nobody replied that. They did not need to. We all realized that debating had no purpose. Like Anna, they had their ideas and expected me to fit in. Though always together, Anna and I were like two sides of the same coin, never on the same page. Dad taught at a university where the variations between us were even more clear. She was into business management, the golden child, usually nodding in lectures, asking intelligent questions that made professors nod gratefully. Me personally, I stayed in the same program, but it felt like wearing a shoe on the wrong foot. Awkward, unpleasant, and just plain wrong. Anna arrived one afternoon as I struggled across a stack of books in the library, her notes orderly and her grin ready. Hey, Liz, tonight you're going to the study group. Professor Hall noted he is dropping over. Could be excellent for us to show face, she replied, her tone light but firm. I looked up, weight of her expectations weighing in mind. No, I would not think so. You know, those are not exactly my scene. She wrinkled and set her books down with a thud that matched her disgust. It's not about it being your scene, Liz. It concerns leaving the correct impressions. You should start paying this some thought. We will be graduating not too far off. I shrugged and turned back to study. I am treating it seriously, just not in a way that makes me miserable. Why bother assuming? Because sometimes, Liz, you'd have to play the game to advance. You assume I enjoy all of this. She pointed around at her precisely tabbed notes and color-coded volumes. It has nothing to do with like. It's about acting out of need. I shook my head then, pushed back my chair with a scrape. Perhaps I'm bored with following everyone else's necessary behavior. Have you ever considered that? Her eyes were steel, but her voice softened. Liz, I'm only looking out for you. Dad's not around to permanently sort things out. If you keep alienating everyone, what are you going to do? Perhaps I will sort things out on my own. Feeling a burst of rebellion, I shot back, maybe not needing to follow Dad's route map, or yours. Anna sighed, her annoyance obvious. You really are rather stubborn. Just try okay. If not for yourself, for me. Show up tonight and talk to Professor Hall. It won't cause you to die. I turned to her, really looked at her, and saw not only my annoyingly perfect sister, but someone who truly cared in her own unique manner. Wonderful. I'll consider it. Not ready to promise more, I said. She said, thank you, her smile returning. You know, it's not quite horrible. If you give it a shot, you could even enjoy it. Doubt it, I whispered, but I knew this round I had lost. I would show there for Anna, sit through another dull conversation, and not at appropriate intervals. I reminded myself it was just a few hours. How horrible could it possibly be? As it happened, not as horrible as I had anticipated. When Professor Hall wasn't presenting from a platform, he was really fascinating. I even asked a question, and Anna gave a startled but delighted glance. Anna prodded me later when we returned to our dorm. Observe, not quite horrible, right? That brittle calm did not endure long, though. Anna first brought us to her fiancé, a lawyer 10 years her senior who was already well established and just what our parents had dreamed of in our last year. Overjoyed and applauding Anna for choosing such a wise match, Mom and Dad turned their expectant gaze straight on me. One evening over dinner, Dad stated, "Now, Eliza, it's your turn to find someone suitable," his voice suggesting that my time was running short. Mom nodded fervently, already sketching out my life as though it were another one of her orderly house projects. "Consider your future, sweetheart. Someone with strong status who can support you." I recall fixating on my dish and felt the walls closing in. Mom painstakingly arranged Anna's wedding down to the minute detail, from the bridesmaids' gowns to the floral arrangements, so highlighting her ideal view of family status. Mom visited Anna a lot after the wedding, giving advice and making sure her life turned out as she had planned. Seeing this, I knew one thing for sure. I wanted my life not shaped by the hands of another. One day, engrossed in ideas of how to flee the life my parents had planned for me, I was walking down the street when I heard the low rumble of a motorcycle approaching. Interest drew me toward the noise. I noticed Jake at that point. Pulling up next to me with his leather jacket and casual grin was him. "You look like you need a ride," he said across the engine's noise, a light-hearted glitter in his eyes. I stopped, looking back at the road home and then at his outstretched hand. What did I have to forfeit? "Sure, why not?" I said, sounding a mixture of anxiety and enthusiasm. Rising onto the rear of his bike, I experienced an adrenaline surge as we raced away. The wind whirled in my hair, and for the first time in a long time I laughed, realistically laughed. Jake yelled something about showing me his world, and I tightened myself, not wanting the moment to stop. We stopped at a diner bikers used often. Over burgers and fries, Jake spoke to me his life as a welder, his love of the wide road, and his passion for motorcycling. Raw and authentic, it was quite unlike anything I was accustomed to. "Do you not get terrified living like this?" My voice hardly above the din of plates and conversation around us, I asked. "Afraid? Not. Thrills abound here. One never knows what is ahead. Surely that's better than having everything scheduled for you," he answered, each word lighting his gaze. We met subtly over the next several weeks. Every ride Jake's motorcycle took me closer to the life I wanted and farther from the one I was meant to be living. The speed and the experience went beyond mere excitement. It was about experiencing life, freedom. Jake turned to me one evening as we watched the sunset from a remote viewpoint. "Eliza, I bike to escape, but more than that. I bike to live, to count every moment. Every moment seems valuable while you are around." My heart pounding rapidly, I leaned in toward him. "This is not like I have ever felt. You make me free, Jake." He grinned and drew me in. "Then let us not return to merely being. Let's live now." 6 months with Jake seemed like a lifetime of memories I had always dreamed about. My heart screamed a yes before my voice could utter the word on the day he proposed under the stars with the soft rumbling of his Harley in the background. Except for one towering obstacle. My parents. It was wonderful. I battled my anxiety about bringing Jake before them. He was everything they disapproved of, his wild energy, his humble but comfortable life as a welder, his sharp edges. But love gave me hope, and I felt it was time they knew. Jake was wearing his regular leather vest, black t-shirt, tattered trousers, and a bandana when I brought him home. About him, I admired that he was unreservedly self. As we ascended the driveway, I could already sense the weight of my parents' criticism. Mom's face became white when we entered upon Jake, her eyes widening in disbelief. "What in the world, Eliza?" Her voice just a whisper, she gasped. Dad's response was tougher, his words like blades. "Who is this, and why is he in our house, looking like a thug?" I inhaled deeply to help me to calm my nerves. "Mom, Dad, Jake here is you. I love the man he is. We are about to be married." Their quiet was unbounded. Then Dad turned to Jake, his voice full of contempt. "Marinated? Young man, what kind of living do you lead? What credentials do you possess?" Jake, bless him, he was relentless. "My line of work is welding. Following high school, I attended several specialist classes. I live an honest life and work hard." The expression on my parents' faces combined disbelief with terror. Mom seems likely to pass out. "Oh, Lisa, a welder. One cannot be serious." Dad's voice grew louder, his fury blazing. "You are expecting us to bless this, to trash your future for a welder." I sensed my determination becoming harder. "Indeed, he makes me joyful and deserves credit. Is not that what ought to count?" "Still, the life you will lead," Mom began with a quivering voice. "It will be the life I choose," I shot back, my own voice gathering power. Dad shook his head, his choice obvious. "We neither want nor can support this. Should you choose him, you should not expect to be a member of this family." Though not his decision, the finality in his voice devastated my heart. Squeezing my hand, Jake gave me the will to face them. "Then I go for Jake. I will choose us. I decide upon my happiness." Dad's jaw tightened and Mom started crying. Dad remarked, his voice icy, "If you walk out with him, don't bother coming back." With Jake, my heart was a jumble of emotions. Pain, relief, excitement, and anxiety all blended into one as we left my parents' house. The evening air felt different, as every breath I took seemed to be a step into another world. For some time we rode in quiet, the only sound the motorbike under us producing constant roar. Jake looked to me, his countenance solemn, when we at last arrived at a little diner on the outskirts of town. "You definitely know about this, Eliza." "Really sure, you mean? After tonight there is no turning back," he added, eyes darting mine for any trace of uncertainty. Nodded and firmly squeezed his hand. "I am most certain of nothing else. Right now, being with you makes sense. It seems like what I should be doing." He grinned, the carefree, appealing smile that had captured me on our first day together. "Let's do it correctly, then, all right. Let us start our life together." We came upon a peaceful booth in the corner of the diner. The waitress brought 2 coffees over without asking, and we sat there deciding what to do next. "What's first, then?" Stirring cream into my coffee, I asked and watched it swirl and mix. "We have to choose somewhere to live, at least temporarily, then possibly start looking for work," Jake said, his voice pragmatic but upbeat. "I have some friends who can help us get started." "It's going to be tough, isn't it?" I said, more of a comment than a query. The truth of what we were doing was starting to sink. Jake covered my hand across the table. "It might be, but we will deal with it together. Tough is nothing fresh for either of us, right?" I laughed, a brief, sharp surge of real pleasure. "Right, together." We stayed in that cafe discussing and organizing for hours. Every so often, Jake would toss out a notion that sounded so wild, so free, that my heart would bleep. "Just you, myself, and the open road. Maybe one day we will save enough to travel that road trip across the nation." "I like that," I murmured, letting myself dream higher than I had ever ventured. Riding back into the city, we started looking. The following several weeks passed in a haze of activity. Though nothing extravagant, a tiny apartment on the outskirts of town was ours. I picked up shifts at a nearby diner, while Jake worked at a neighborhood mechanic. Though life was difficult, it was ours. We made do with what we had. Every night, when we returned home to see one another, it felt as though we had everything. Months later, we decided it was time to formalize it and married in a little private ceremony. I clung to a sliver of hope that my relatives would show up, that they would realize how delighted I was and let go of their preconceptions. The chairs set aside for them stayed empty, though, and no congrats arrived. The day was lovely as it was ours, even with the ache of their absence. I got rather close to Jake's mother over time. She greeted me with wide arms, naming me her daughter, therefore completing the void left by my own family. Her friendliness and acceptance helped some of the hurt resulting from my parents' rejection heal. Once Jake finished more diving instruction and earned his certification as an underwater welder, things were finally starting to look good for him and me. His salary jumped to $150,000 annually. That transformation made all the difference. We were able to purchase a townhouse in a decent neighborhood, the kind of property I had always wanted but never considered I would really live in. Working for Jake's company, I began as a dispatcher. It was more than simply work. It felt like I was helping the man I loved and laying groundwork for our future together. On weekends, we would ride his bike out of the city, speeding across twisting roads and savoring amazing vistas of landscape. Those were perfect times, the breeze in my hair and his warmth against my back. Living nearby, my mother-in-law started paying regular visits. She showed up one afternoon looking a little disturbed while Jake was experimenting in the garage and I was fixing us some coffee. She murmured, "There's been some ugly news," as she dropped down at the kitchen table. Something about a university professor engaged in a harassment scandal. My heart stopped briefly. "Oh, did they say whose it was?" Fearing the response, I attempted to keep my voice steady. She gave her head a shake. "No, on the radio they mentioned no name. However, you know how these things turn out. By now it most likely shows all over the TV." So I tuned into the news by flicking on the TV. Indeed, there was a scandal report, and as I had predicted, my father's face showed up on the TV. The anchor went into great detail accusing him, and I had a chilly sense of incredulity. I turned off the TV and sank down hard to try to sort the news. Wiping his hands on a rag, Jake entered and spotted my face. "What's wrong, sweetie?" His brow wrinkled in sympathy as he inquired. I sucked hard, my voice hardly a whisper. "It is my dad. He has been charged with stalking a student." Before Jake reached over and grabbed my hand, his face tightened momentarily. "I'm apologies, Eliza. That's difficult news. How you want to approach this?" "Not really sure of anything right now," I shook my head. "I have no idea. What can I really do after all? Not as we are now, close as not." Sensibly understanding, he gripped my hand. "I am here for you, anything you need. Right now, we don't have to work it all out." Before acting, I chose to wait and watch things develop. Knowing I would have Jake by my side, whatever choice I chose gave me the comfort I needed to face whatever happened next. Until that surprising afternoon, life had been quiet. A known automobile entered the parking lot at work. After not seeing my parents in a long time, the sight of them set out a range of feelings I had long put to rest. Both of them looked rather different. The crisis has worn out people. Mom looked years older and had dropped a lot of weight. Dad seemed broken, a shell of the strict man he once was. Seeing me, my mother hurried over, arms extended, like if nothing had occurred, as if years of alienation and rejection could be healed in a moment. Not now, though. I could embrace her. Rather, I backed off and grabbed Jake's hand in search of strength in his presence. Mom exclaimed, her voice breaking with emotion, "Eliza, it was so hard to find you." Ever the austere one, Dad cut right to the point, his voice sharp and nasty. "You know, I was falsely accused. When I visited your sister's husband seeking assistance, that bloodsucker sought a wealth instead. Your sister backed him, and today we have been kicked out. We depend on you." I looked at them, incredulity and wrath whirling inside of me. "Help? You turn up and expect help after all these years?" Mom said, "We have nowhere else to go," with desperation. "They have also disowned us too. We considered maybe staying with you." I almost found the ridiculousness funny. "Stay at my side. Once you turned away from me, you made it really plain that I was no longer your daughter. Dad's cheeks reddened as his old passion sprang out. You owe us, Eliza, after all we have done for you. That's where you're wrong, I said, sensing Jake squeeze my hand in encouragement. I owe nothing to you. I put my happiness over your requests, hence you kicked me out. And today you yearn for what? Just move in and act as though we are a family? The situation was escalating, and I could see people observing, a gathering starting to take shape. Mom began to cry. Her tears were loud and more likely to draw attention. Through her tears, "You're being unappreciative after everything we've done for you," she said. I breathed deeply, my choice obvious. Not, Mom. I am not undulating in thankfulness. I'm content and free. You made decisions, now you have to deal with them. I heard my dad screaming as we left, but Jake leaned over and softly ordered the security staff, "Don't let them come here again." Love and calm permeated the next months, which sped by. A son arrived, a fresh start for our expanding family. Neither did my parents ever return. That day in the parking lot was the last I saw of them. Although part of me laments what may have been, I knew I had chosen the best course of action for my family and myself.
Hi, I'm Sophia, a 19-year-old college student with a story that might just change the way you think about family. Growing up as an adopted child, I was surrounded by the warmth and love of my parents, who never made me feel anything less than their own. But there was always a chill in the air when it came to Grandma Margaret. At family gatherings, while laughter and conversation filled the room, a cold front seemed to settle wherever she was, especially near me. "So, Sophia, how's your little college adventure going?" Grandma Margaret would ask, her voice tinged with disapproval, as though going to college was a frivolous pursuit. "Oh, it's enlightening," I'd reply, trying to keep things civil, even though I knew she didn't approve of my major in social work, a field she thought was too charitable for someone as privileged as me. My parents, John and Mary, often tried to ease the tension. "Mom, Sophia's doing great. Aren't you proud of her?" my dad would say, attempting to bridge the gap between us. I suppose Grandma Margaret would mutter, sipping her tea and scanning the room for a more suitable conversation partner. As my 18th birthday approached, I secretly hoped things with Grandma might change. We sent her an invite to my birthday dinner, despite her usual frosty demeanor. "Maybe this year will be different," I mused to my best friend, Lily, over the phone. "Maybe she'll see that I'm more than just the adopted granddaughter." Lily, ever the optimist, encouraged me, saying, "You're better than you think, Sophia. Maybe she'll finally see that too." On the night of the party, I carefully chose a blue dress my mom said brought out my highs, hoping it might soften Margaret's usual scrutiny. As guests arrived, laughter filled our home until Margaret walked in. Her eyes swept over me with the same cold indifference. "Happy birthday, Sophia. You look mature," she said without warmth. "Thank you, Grandma. I'm glad you could come," I replied, my smile feeling forced. The dinner went on as usual, with polite conversation and simmering tension. But halfway through the evening, just as I was about to cut the cake, the doorbell rang. I offered to get it, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't explain. When I opened the door, I found myself staring at a woman who looked oddly familiar, her features echoing my own. "Sophia, I'm Evelyn," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm your birth mother. I had got a call from Margaret. She told me you wanted to reconnect, that you needed to know your real family because you felt out of place." The knife I was holding slipped from my hand, clattering against the plate. Behind me, the chatter in the room fell silent. "Is this true, Sophia? Are you unhappy here?" Evelyn asked, her eyes searching mine for answers I didn't have. "No, that's not true at all," I stammered, feeling trapped. I turned to look at Margaret, her expression unreadable. This was the storm I hadn't seen coming, one brewing from within the very walls I thought were safe. Margaret had orchestrated this. The festive atmosphere of my birthday shattered in an instant, leaving me in the eye of a betrayal that would change the meaning of family for me forever. "Margaret told me you were unhappy, that you felt out of place in your adoptive family," Evelyn continued, her voice breaking. "She said you wanted to meet me to connect with your roots." "That's not true," I said, my voice cracking. "I don't know why Margaret would say that." My eyes darted to my grandma, pleading for an explanation. My father stepped forward, his face filled with confusion and anger. "Why would you do this, Mom?" he asked. My mother, her voice a mixture of disbelief and hurt, demanded, "What are you trying to accomplish, Margaret?" "She deserves to know where she comes from," Margaret snapped. "She has a right to know her real family, not just the one that's been playing pretend." "Grandma, how could you?" I choked out, the hurt evident in my voice. "They're not pretending. They are my family. Sophia is our daughter, Margaret. How dare you undermine that?" My dad's voice rose, his usual calm replaced by fury. Margaret, seemingly taken aback by the outcry, mumbled, "I thought I was doing the right thing. She has a right to know her blood." "Blood isn't the only thing that makes a family, Margaret. You've crossed the line," my mom said, her disappointment palpable. Turning to Evelyn, I tried to offer some reassurance. "I'm sorry you were dragged into this under false pretenses," I said softly, hoping to mend at least one part of the damage Margaret had caused. "I just wanted to meet the daughter I couldn't raise." Margaret made it sound like you wanted the same. Evelyn's voice was soft, her sorrow reflecting the chaos Margaret had created. The room grew still, the festive decorations a stark contrast to the heavy hearts we all carried. I glanced around at my family, my real family, and felt a renewed sense of belonging, despite Margaret's attempts to fracture it. "Let's talk, Evelyn. Not because of what Margaret did, but despite it. I want you to know the family that raised me, the family I love." My words, offered as a bridge between my past and present, hung in the air, a tentative offer of reconciliation amidst the ruins of the evening. "Thank you, Sophia. I'd like that," Evelyn responded, her acceptance the first step toward healing, a glimmer of hope on a night marred by unexpected revelations. "Why would you do something like this, Margaret? What were you thinking?" My father's voice was stern, demanding answers in the wake of the ruined celebration. "I thought it was helping," Margaret replied, her tone defiant. "I thought she needed to reconnect with where she came from, to understand that she wasn't really one of us." "One of us? Sophia is more a part of this family than anyone else could be. How could you say she's not one of us?" My mother's voice trembled with a mixture of fury and pain, her protective instinct fiercely awakened. "You never understood Mary. You and John took her in, but blood is blood. I thought she should know her own kind," Margaret replied, her old-fashioned beliefs clashing with the values we held dear. "Her own kind? We are her kind, Margaret. We are her family." John's voice, usually so calm, broke under the weight of the betrayal. "Mom, Dad, I love you. You raised me, you cared for me. Margaret, why can't you see that? Why can't you accept that I am happy, that this is my real family?" My voice interrupted the rising argument, a plea for understanding amidst the chaos. "Sophia, I thought I was doing the right thing. Maybe I was wrong." For the first time, Margaret's voice softened, a crack in her defiance finally appearing. "You've caused so much pain tonight, Margaret. How do we move forward from here?" My mother's question lingered, with uncertainty heavy in the room. "We start by acknowledging that Sophia's place in this family is not up for debate. She is our daughter. That's final. If you can't accept that, Margaret, I don't know how you can be part of our lives." My father's ultimatum was clear, the boundaries set. "Sophia, I'm sorry. I don't know if you can forgive me, but I am sorry." Margaret's apology was hesitant, her pride battling with the realization of the hurt she had caused. "I appreciate your apology, Grandma, but it's going to take time." "A lot of time," I responded, the wound too fresh, the betrayal too deep to simply move past. As Margaret left the room, the silence that followed was a relief, a chance to breathe. John and Mary wrapped their arms around me, their love a balm to the sting of the evening's revelations. "We love you, Sophia. Nothing changes that, not now, not ever," my mother whispered, her reassurance a gentle echo in the chaos, a reminder of the unbreakable bond we shared. As we stood united, the challenges ahead seemed daunting but not insurmountable. With the love and support of my parents, I knew we could face anything, even the deepest family rifts. Weeks later, I sat across from my therapist, the room quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock. "It's just so hard to understand why she did it. Margaret wanted to send me back to a place I haven't belonged in years," I said, my voice tinged with the lingering hurt. "Sophia, it's important to process these feelings. What she did was not a reflection of your worth, but of her own struggles with acceptance. My therapist gently explained, her words steady amidst my turmoil. I know, but it still hurts. My parents have been incredible, reassuring me every day that I'm loved, that I belong. I replied, grateful for their unwavering support. Those therapy sessions became a lifeline, helping me rebuild trust in the family that had always been my home. Meanwhile, Margaret's situation took a tragic turn. Her health began to decline rapidly, a cruel irony as she found herself needing the very family she had once tried to tear apart. One afternoon, my mother called me into the living room. Margaret was there, looking frail and diminished. Sophia, I need help. I am sorry for everything. Her voice was weak, her eyes pleading. Margaret, this is hard for me, but I can't ignore someone in need. Not even you. Despite everything, I felt a stir of compassion. We were still family, even if the bonds were frayed. Thank you, Sophia. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm grateful for your help, Margaret admitted, her reliance on us evident in her tone. In the weeks that followed, I found myself accompanying Mary to Margaret's doctor visits, supporting her through appointments. In the quiet, sterile hospital corridors, I saw a side of Margaret I'd never known. I was wrong, Sophia, she confessed one afternoon during a long wait. Your parents, they're good people. And you truly are their daughter. Her voice was barely a whisper, but the sincerity was undeniable. It's been a long journey, Grandma. It'll take time to heal, I said, my own walls cautiously coming down. Time? Yes. I hope there's enough of it left for me to make things right, she mused, her words tinged with regret. My therapy sessions continue to be a safe space for reflection. You're navigating this with great maturity, Sophia. How you're handling Margaret's situation is commendable, my therapist remarked during one session. It's not easy, I admitted, but I'm learning that family isn't just about blood. It's about who stands by you when the ground shakes. My understanding of family was deepening as Margaret leaned on us more, and our household shifted. From the ashes of betrayal, new bridges were being built, slowly, painstakingly. In the quiet of Margaret's room, the steady beep of the monitor reminded us of life's fragility. Her breathing was labored, her health fading faster than we'd expected. Despite the pain she had caused, I found myself holding her frail hand in mine. You've been so kind to me, Sophia. After everything I've done, she murmured one afternoon, her voice stripped of its former sternness. It's what family does, Grandma. We take care of each other, no matter what. I replied softly, my words meant to soothe the wounds of our past. I see that now. I wish I had seen it sooner, Margaret said, her eyes meeting mine with a clarity that spoke of realizations come too late. We can't change the past, Grandma, but we can accept its lessons, I responded, squeezing her hand gently. Forgiveness, hard won through my own journey of healing, was finally given. As the days turned into nights, Margaret's moments of lucidity grew rarer. But in those moments, she spoke of gratitude, regret, and the understanding she had gained at the end of her life. When the end came, it was peaceful. Margaret passed away with my parents and me by her side, a somber yet serene finale to a life marked by both strife and change. Her funeral was a quiet affair, attended by those who had witnessed her transformation and supported her in her final days. Standing by her grave, I felt a weight lift. A chapter was closing, not with bitterness, but with the quiet dignity of reconciliation. She found peace, Sophia. And I think we can find it too, Mary whispered as we watched the last of the mourners leave. Yes, Mom. It's time to look forward, to build on the love we have. As we walked away, the sun broke through the clouds, its rays like fingers of warmth reaching down to soothe the chill of the graveyard. It felt like a sign of new beginnings, of the enduring power of love and acceptance, a fitting tribute to the lessons learned and the family bonds that had ultimately withstood the tests of time and trial. As our story draws to a close, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you believe true forgiveness is possible when someone deeply betrays family trust, as Margaret did? Can family bonds overcome such deep wounds? Share your opinions in the comments below. Hey there, I'm Olivia, a 28-year-old marketing executive who thought I had my life all planned out. Everything seemed perfect, especially on the night of my engagement party. I was ecstatic, surrounded by friends, family, and of course, my fiancé Marcus. My parents' house was decked out like something straight out of a fairy tale. I was in my room, putting the final touches on my makeup when my Aunt Karen burst in. Sweetie, you look stunning," she exclaimed, enveloping me in a hug. "I can't believe my little niece is all grown up and getting married." I laughed, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. "Thanks, Aunt Karen. I'm so glad you're here to help. You've always been like a second mom to me." As she helped me clasp my necklace, her hands trembled slightly. "Are you sure about this, Olivia? Marriage is a big step." I brushed off her concern. "Aunt Karen, we've talked about this. Marcus is amazing and I love him. You'll see how perfect we are together tonight." She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. I chose to ignore it, assuming she was just being overprotective. As guests started arriving, I moved around, greeting everyone with a huge smile. My best friend and maid of honor, Samantha, pulled me aside. "Girl, you're glowing. But what's up with your aunt? She's been giving Marcus the stink eye all night." I sighed. "You know how she is. She'll come around once she gets to know him better." Just then, Marcus appeared, looking dashing in his suit. "There's my beautiful fiancé," he said, pulling me close. "Your aunt cornered me earlier. I think she was trying to grill me about my intentions or something." I rolled my eyes. "I'm sorry, babe. She means well, I promise." The party was in full swing when Marcus's phone buzzed. "Sorry, I have to take this. It's work," he whispered, stepping out onto the side porch. I mingled with the guests. After about 10 minutes, I started to worry. Where was he? Suddenly, I heard a commotion from the front of the house. My heart dropped as I saw flashing lights through the windows. What the hell was going on? I rushed to the front door and froze. Marcus was on the ground, his hands behind his back, 2 police officers standing over him. My Aunt Karen was pointing at him, her finger trembling. "That's him, officers. I saw him sneaking around the side of the house." I couldn't believe my eyes. "Aunt Karen, what are you doing?" "That's Marcus, my fiancé." The confusion on her face quickly turned to horror as she realized her mistake, but the damage was already done. Our perfect engagement party had turned into a complete disaster, and as I looked at Marcus's humiliated face, I couldn't help but wonder if we ever recover from this. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a series of events that would turn my life upside down and make me question everything I thought I knew about family, love, and trust. As I stood there, watching the police officers roughly handle Marcus, I felt like I was trapped in a twisted nightmare. My voice was hoarse from yelling explanations, but it seemed like no one was listening. "Please, officers, this is all a huge misunderstanding," I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. "That's my fiancé, Marcus. We're having our engagement party right now." One of the officers finally turned to me, his expression serious. "Ma'am, we received a call about an intruder. We have to follow protocol." I spun around to face Aunt Karen, who was swaying slightly, a half-empty wine glass in her hand. "Aunt Karen, how could you do this? You've met Marcus dozens of times." She hiccuped, her eyes unfocused. I thought I saw someone sneaking around. I was just trying to protect you, Olivia." By now, all our guests had gathered around, whispering and staring. I could see the shock and embarrassment on Marcus's face as he sat, handcuffed on the ground. This was supposed to be our special night, and now it was ruined. After what felt like an eternity, the situation was finally cleared up. The officers removed Marcus's handcuffs and apologized for the misunderstanding. But the damage was done. Our perfect evening was shattered. As the last of the guests awkwardly said their goodbyes, I approached Aunt Karen, expecting a heartfelt apology. Instead, she just patted my arm and slurred, "Well, that was exciting, wasn't it? These things happen, dear. No harm done." Before I could respond, Samantha pulled me aside, her eyes narrowed as she watched Aunt Karen stumble towards the kitchen. "Liv, I don't want to add fuel to the fire, but don't you think this is a bit strange? Your aunt's known Marcus for ages, and she doesn't seem nearly as drunk as she's acting." I shook my head, not wanting to consider the implications. "Sam, please, she made a mistake. A horrible, embarrassing mistake, but still. I don't know, Liv. Something doesn't add up here." As the night wound down, I found Marcus sitting alone on the porch swing, his shoulders slumped, staring out into the darkness. "Marcus, baby, I'm so sorry. I can't believe this happened." He sighed heavily. "It's not your fault, Olivia. But I can't help feeling like your family doesn't want me here. Maybe we should rethink this whole engagement thing." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. No, Marcus, please don't let one awful night ruin everything we have. Before he could respond, I heard voices coming from inside. I recognized my mom and Aunt Karen, and something in their tone made me pause. Telling Marcus I'd be right back, I crept closer to the window, my heart pounding. I can't believe you did that, Karen, my mom was saying, her voice low and furious. You've always made it clear you don't approve of Marcus, but this is a new low. Aunt Karen's reply made my blood run cold. Oh, come on, Sarah. You know as well as I do that Olivia's making a huge mistake. That boy isn't good enough for her. I was just trying to open her eyes before it's too late. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. All this time, I thought Aunt Karen was just being overprotective. But this was something else entirely. As I turned to go back to Marcus, I realized that my engagement party wasn't the only thing shattered tonight. My trust in the woman I had always seen as a second mother lay in pieces at my feet. The days following the engagement party disaster were a blur of awkward phone calls and strained conversations. Marcus was pulling away, and I felt like I was losing him. I couldn't shake what I had overheard between my mom and Aunt Karen. I called Samantha, desperate for a sympathetic ear. Sam, I think you were right. There's something off about Aunt Karen's behavior. I'm coming over. We need to talk. An hour later, we were huddled over my laptop, digging through old emails and social media posts. What we found made my stomach churn. Look at this, Samantha pointed to an old Facebook message. Remember Jake from college? Karen told him you were going through some things and to stay away. I felt sick. I'd always wondered why he stopped calling. We uncovered more. Subtle digs at Marcus in family group chats. Concerned emails to my parents about his career prospects. It was like seeing years of manipulation laid bare. Liv, there's something else, Samantha said hesitantly. I talked to the bartender at your party. Karen barely touched her drinks all night. She was faking being drunk. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. She planned all of it. The next day, I steeled myself and went to confront Aunt Karen. I found her in her garden, pruning roses like nothing was wrong. Aunt Karen, we need to talk about what happened at the party. She turned to me, all smiles. Oh, honey, let's not dwell on that unfortunate misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? You called the cops on my fiancé. Her smile faltered. I was just looking out for you. You know how men can be. Stop it, I snapped. I know you've been interfering in my relationships for years. You lied about being drunk. You've been spreading rumors about Marcus. Karen's face hardened. You ungrateful little brat. After everything I've done for you. Done for me, you've been trying to control my life. She laughed coldly. Control? I've been protecting you from your own bad decisions. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That wasn't your decision to make. You've been lying to me, manipulating me. I did what I had to do, she interrupted. You think you know what's best for you? You're still a child, Olivia. You need me. No, I said, my voice shaking. What I need is for you to stay out of my life. I'm done with your toxic behavior. Karen's eyes narrowed. You walk away from me and you'll regret it. Who do you think has been pulling strings at your company? One word from me and your perfect little career goes up in smoke. I felt like I'd been slapped. You're threatening me now, my own aunt? I'm giving you a chance to see reason, she hissed. Break it off with Marcus. I'll find you a suitable match, someone who can take care of you properly. In that moment, I saw Aunt Karen for who she truly was, a manipulative, controlling woman who had been poisoning my life for years. We're done, I said, turning to leave. Don't contact me again. As I walked away, Karen called after me. You'll come crawling back, Olivia. You need me more than you know. I got into my car, my mind racing. There was a lot of damage to undo, starting with Marcus. I realized that confronting Aunt Karen wasn't the end of this nightmare. It was just the beginning of reclaiming my life. Determined to make things right, I drove straight to Marcus's apartment, my heart pounding the whole way. When he opened the door, I could see the pain in his eyes. Marcus, I'm so sorry. I had no idea how toxic Aunt Karen was. Can we talk? I asked, my voice trembling. He hesitated but finally stepped aside, letting me in. We talked for hours, clearing the air and sharing everything we discovered about Karen's manipulations. By the end, Marcus took my hand and said, We're in this together. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I called my parents and explained everything. They were shocked but supportive. We had no idea Karen was capable of this, Mom said. "We're behind you, honey." As word spread about Karen's behavior, she tried to spin the narrative, calling relatives and crying about how I'd turned against her, but her lies fell flat. People started sharing their own stories of Karen's manipulation, and suddenly her web of deceit was unraveling. Samantha took charge of damage control, organizing a proper engagement party, this time without any unwanted drama. As Marcus and I stood surrounded by our true friends and family, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. To Olivia and Marcus, Samantha toasted, raising her glass. "May your love always be stronger than any obstacle." The cheers that followed warmed my heart. This was how it should have been all along. But Karen wasn't going down without a fight. She showed up at my office one day, causing a scene. "You ungrateful child. After everything I've done for you," she shouted. I stood my ground. "You've done nothing but tried to control me, Aunt Karen. It's over. Please leave." As security escorted her out, I noticed my coworkers watching. I braced for judgment, but instead received support. "We always thought your aunt was a bit intense," my boss said. "Good for you for standing up to her." Just when I thought things were settling down, the other shoe dropped. News broke that Karen had been embezzling funds from the family business for years. She was removed from the company and criminal charges were being considered. In the aftermath, Karen's carefully cultivated image crumbled. Friends distanced themselves, country club memberships were revoked, and suddenly, the woman who had tried to control everyone's lives found herself alone. Through it all, Marcus was my rock. We threw ourselves into wedding planning, and as the big day approached, I felt nothing but joy and excitement. Our wedding day dawned bright and beautiful. As I walked down the aisle, I saw Marcus beaming at me, surrounded by the people who genuinely loved and supported us. For a moment, I caught sight of a lone figure watching from afar. Aunt Karen, uninvited and isolated. I felt a twinge of sadness but pushed it aside. This was our day. "I do," I said, looking into Marcus's eyes. As we kissed, cheers erupted around us. This was the beginning of our new life together. Later, as we danced at the reception, Marcus whispered, "Ready for our honeymoon, Mrs. Taylor?" I grinned. "More than ready. Let's leave all this drama behind and start our adventure." As we drove off, I felt a sense of freedom I'd never known before. We were heading towards our future, stronger for what we'd overcome and ready to face whatever life threw our way, together. Now, I have a question for you. If you discovered that a close family member had been sabotaging your relationships for years, could you ever forgive them? Or would you cut them out of your life completely? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hi, I'm Sarah. The living room felt alive, filled with warmth and laughter as Michael and I put the final touches on the decorations for Lily's adoption ceremony. The scent of her favorite lilies mingled with the soft sweetness of vanilla candles flickering on the mantelpiece. Michael adjusted the banner that proudly read, "Welcome home, Lily." His hands were steady, but his eyes shimmered with excitement every time they met mine. "Everything's perfect, Sarah. Can you believe she's finally going to be officially ours?" His voice cracked with emotion. I smiled, tucking a stray lock of hair behind my ear. "I can't wait. After all we've been through, this feels like a dream." The journey hadn't been easy. Michael and I had spent years grappling with the heartbreak of infertility, each negative test a painful reminder of what we thought we couldn't have. But when we met Lily at the foster care center, with her bright eyes and shy smile, we knew she was meant to be our daughter. The adoption process had been long and exhausting, yet every step brought us closer to this moment. As guests started to arrive, the room filled with chatter and congratulatory smiles. My brother Ethan was one of the last to enter. His smile was tight, his eyes scanning the room with an unreadable expression. Despite his traditional views on family, which often caused tension at gatherings, I hoped today would be different. "Hey, Ethan. Glad you could make it," I greeted him, trying to keep things light. "Yeah, wouldn't miss it," he replied, though his tone was reserved. "You know, I always believed that family should be traditional." I met his gaze, my voice firm but calm. "Family isn't just about blood, Ethan. It's about love. Lily is as much our daughter as if I'd given birth to her." His frown deepened, but he said nothing more. The ceremony began, and as Michael and I stood beside Lily, her small hand wrapped tightly around mine, I felt the weight of this beautiful moment. The officiant was halfway through a heartfelt speech about families and new beginnings when Ethan abruptly stood up. Lily's not a real family member. This is a lie. She's not one of us and never will be. Ethan, enough. Michael's voice was steady and firm as he stepped forward. Lily is our daughter, and your approval isn't needed. The room grew tense, guests shifting uncomfortably. Some murmured their support, while others seemed uncertain. Ethan, his confidence faltering, glanced around the room. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, he shot back, though his voice wavered. No, I said, stepping forward. You're saying what you think. Lily is our daughter, and if you can't accept that, maybe you should leave. Ethan stared at me, the fight draining from him as he saw the unity between Michael and me. Without another word, he turned and walked out, the door closing sharply behind him. The warmth that had briefly faded slowly returned as our friends and family rallied around us, their support a comforting blanket against the chill Ethan had left behind. Lily looked up at me, her smile so bright, so full of hope. In that moment, I knew we'd made the right choice. Not just for us, but for her. This was what family was truly about: love, commitment, and belonging, no matter the bloodlines. Michael squeezed my shoulder gently and then turned to the guests. Please give us a moment, he said, guiding them toward the refreshment table. Once the room had emptied out a bit, I stepped outside, finding Ethan leaning against the porch railing, staring out into the yard. Ethan, what happened in there? This was supposed to be a happy day, and you? I trailed off, my voice thick with hurt. He didn't look at me, his voice tight. You wouldn't understand, Sarah. You're changing everything our family stands for. That's not true. I'm expanding what our family can be. Why can't you see that Lily is as much a part of this family as any of us? Finally, he turned to face me, his eyes clouded with fear and frustration. It's not just about today, Sarah. It's about what comes after. Adopting. It opens doors we can't close. What about the family legacy? The lineage? I scoffed, the word bitter in my mouth. Legacy. Is our legacy more important than giving a loving home to a child who needs one? How can you be so selfish? Ethan's posture deflated as he rubbed his forehead, his voice quieter. It's not just selfishness. It's about preserving what we've known. You moving forward with this. It feels like you're leaving the rest of us behind, like our way of life isn't good enough. I softened, seeing the fear behind his words. Ethan, you're letting fear control you. You're hurting everyone around you, especially a little girl who just wants to be loved. How can that preserve anything good? He looked away, the conflict in his eyes now mingling with a deep sense of shame. In the weeks following the adoption ceremony, the ground shifted beneath all of us, but none more so than Ethan. His once rigid and structured life, built on his unwavering beliefs, began to crumble. Did you hear about Ethan? Michael murmured one evening, scrolling through his phone as we settled on the couch. Lily was dozing peacefully between us. A knot formed in my stomach. What now? I asked, bracing myself. He's been put on leave from work. Apparently, some of the board members heard about his outbursts at the ceremony. They're questioning his judgment, saying this isn't the first time he's let personal biases affect his professional decisions. The news didn't surprise me, but it still felt heavy. Ethan had always prided himself on his career. His identity was so deeply intertwined with his professional success that I knew this would cut him to the core. As Ethan's world seemed to shrink, ours expanded with a new and profound sense of belonging. The community's response to the adoption had been overwhelmingly supportive. Neighbors who had attended the ceremony expressed both their disdain for Ethan's behavior and admiration for our strength. Our friends and extended family rallied around us, organizing small gatherings, playdates, and outings for Lily. They made sure she felt the embrace of a community that saw her as one of their own. Mommy, everyone is really nice here, Lily remarked one day, her voice full of innocent wonder as we watched her play in the park with her new friends. They are, sweetheart, they really are, I replied, my heart swelling with warmth. Her simple observation touched me deeply, a reminder of just how far we had come. The contrast between our growing support system and Ethan's increasingly solitary struggle was stark. While his life seemed to fracture, ours flourished. It became clearer with each passing day that the open hearts around us had given us something far more valuable than tradition or bloodlines could ever offer. As we continued to build our lives around love, connection, and acceptance, it was evident that while Ethan had lost much, we had gained immeasurably more. Our community, our friends, and our family didn't just accept us, they celebrated us. And in that celebration, we found the truest meaning of family. Months had passed since Ethan's disruptive outburst, and the ripples from that day had finally settled into a calm, steady rhythm for us. But for Ethan, the consequences of his actions had only deepened. One crisp autumn evening, as Michael and I planned a small gathering to celebrate Lily's adoption anniversary, my phone rang. It was Ethan. His voice, once so confident, was now low and tinged with defeat. "Sarah, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I know I've made mistakes, huge ones. I'm sorry, truly. Can we meet? I want to make things right." I paused, the phone heavy in my hand. The old pain, dulled by time, still throbbed at his words. "Ethan, I appreciate your apology, but I can't put my family through more turmoil. We need to heal, and right now, that means doing it without you." A silence stretched between us. Finally, he sighed, his voice quiet. "I understand." We ended the call with a sense of finality, though the decision weighed on me as I watched Lily, so vibrant and completely at home in her life with us. I knew it was the right choice. Protecting this peace, this happiness we had built, was my priority. The day of our celebration was simple and joyful. Close friends and family gathered in our backyard, the golden leaves above us creating a warm canopy. Lily, dressed in a bright blue dress with ribbons in her hair, flitted from guest to guest, her laughter mingling with the soft music. Michael stood beside me, his hand warm on my back as we watched her. "This is what it's all about, isn't it?" he said softly. I nodded, my heart full. "It is. This is family, not defined by blood or birth, but by love and choice." As the party continued, I stepped aside for a moment, taking in the scene before me. This was our chosen family, diverse, beautiful, and strong. We had created a circle of love and support that was just as real and legitimate as any traditional family. In the quiet corners of my thoughts, I hoped Ethan would one day find his way to understanding and acceptance. But our paths had diverged. His journey was no longer intertwined with ours. I turned back to the celebration, to my husband, my daughter, and the friends who had stood by us through it all. In the laughter, the shared stories, the clinking of glasses, and the setting sun, I saw the true essence of family. It was resilience. It was forgiveness, not always of each other, but of the hardships we have faced and overcome. It was the forward motion of lives bound together by choice and by the simple, profound act of love. Ethan's absence was a poignant reminder of the cost of holding too tightly to unyielding beliefs. Alone and regretful, his path stood in stark contrast to the vibrant, inclusive circle we had drawn around ourselves. In this new beginning, there was no room for the narrowness of the past, only the wide, embracing love of our present and future. This was our family, legitimate, undeniable, and real. That brings us to the end of our story. Now, I have a question for all of you. Do you believe that family should be defined strictly by blood ties, or can chosen relationships provide the same sense of belonging and love? What are your thoughts on creating family bonds through choice rather than traditional lineage? Please share your opinions in the comments below.